Hi, it's Asami, and this is a quick introductory video into block printing. This is meant to be really not intimidating, very beginner, and using kind of simple materials and working with soft cut. Just an intro into some of the recommended supplies. So as I mentioned, this tutorial is going to be using the Soft Cut brand of really soft kind of carving material. And it's almost kind of like an eraser. It even erases things just like an eraser. So it's kind of like a rubbery eraser material. And so here's a piece that I carved that you can see. This is the block from the illustration you saw on the first slide there. You're going to want to use water-based printing inks. It's kind of better for the environment because it's water-based and unlike the oil-based inks, and just easier to clean up, easier to work with. You're going to use some carving tools. You can really use any kind of carving tools that you find. The ones that I just had on hand are wood block carving tools, which are a little bit extra to work with this soft cut material. But you can find so many different carving tools. And again, it's really soft material, so you're not going to have to use anything that's like crazy expensive or especially sharp or anything like that. So whatever you find probably will be perfectly fine to work with. I know that Speedball comes out with like a range of carving tools, so you could try that one as well. You're going to want a brayer of some sort. A brayer is like a roller, paint roller thing. You could even use this kind of foam version of it, or even like a foam kind of stamping kind of tool. And then for printing, really making sure that the block gets adhered to your paper, you're going to want to use a Japanese tool called a button. And this is a great tool for ensuring that your inks are going to get really adhered to your paper. And then some kind of tray or, glass palette of some sort for your inks. So just a breakdown of the carving process. You can either free draw or transfer your drawing onto the soft cut material. And you want to work kind of large to small. So start out by carving out large areas, especially kind of the outer edge. You can just kind of start carving away all the outer stuff. So you get the kind of contour, you get the view of what the contour of your image will be like. And this is really straightforward, but at the same time, very confusing. And so I just put this here to kind of remind you that what you carve out is the recess. It's what you carve out, there's no ink that's going to go in there. And so what you're carving out will end up being your paper color. And I say that paper color instead of just white because your paper color can really be anything. You can really experiment and use like different brightly colored papers. And so just remember that what you're carving out, I used white paper, so it's going to be white. What you leave uncarved, okay, what you don't carve into is going to end up touching the ink and therefore is going to be your ink color. So I used red ink here, and all the parts where I didn't carve out are going to be in this red ink. The final print will become a mirror image. So you can see this is what my block looks like. When I print it, it's a mirror image. And I just put this here to remind you that if you're going to do any words, it has to be mirrored when you're carving. So in the block, it has to be backwards so that when you print it, you can actually read the words. Very, very kind of like straightforward, but at the same time, something you can easily forget about. So I put that in there because I've forgotten about it like a bunch of times. So just a reminder, anything that you want to be a certain way should be mirrored in your block. All right, so just taking a look at the transfer process. Here's my drawing that I want to kind of transfer onto my soft cut. I want to stress that you should really work in a super soft pencil for your drawing. Here I'm using a 10B pencil, and that's so that the pencil will actually adhere to the soft cut. So place your drawing onto your soft cut in any way that it will fit, and use a hard pencil. Here I'm using a B pencil. So use a hard pencil to kind of cover that entire drawing and make that drawing adhere to the soft cut. And you can always double check your progress. Just try not to move your paper. So slowly double check your process as you're confirming that all of that is getting transferred. It's like a hard pencil will work great for this. So here's my transferred drawing. And then from there, you can, I recommend going in with like a Sharpie so that you can clearly see what you're going to be carving out. So wherever it's going to be black, I just pretend that that's where my ink is going to go. So I don't carve out the Sharpie part. I'm carving out the kind of blank parts. And so you can leave it this kind of outline kind of stamp if you like, or you can fill it in. And I'm going to completely fill this in. So you could try different ways if you want just like clean outline kind of stamp, or you want a lot of ink coverage, then you can start really filling it in with that Sharpie and only leaving little bits that you're going to carve out. All right, so here's just showing you how soft that soft cut is. Here I'm carving in, really glides super smooth like butter. Really fun to work with. And if you want to free draw directly onto the soft cut, again, use a soft 10B pencil. You know, a 6B to a 10B would work great. You can see how dark that's coming out with that 10B pencil. So you can free draw your designs directly onto the soft cut as well. But if you already have a drawing done that you want to work with, you'll have to use that transfer process I showed earlier. So just starting to kind of carve. When you're carving, make sure you're carving away from your body, away from your hands, away from your fingers at all times. You can see I'm carving away. I also like working with the X-Acto knife for really straight lines or like super tiny, teeny, tiny details that I want to carve out. So sometimes I'll carve in with an X-Acto knife, and then after those marks are there, I go in with the bigger tools to just carve all of that out, always away from your hands. All right, and just going to break down the printing process. So for printing, use a brayer or sponge to load the ink directly onto your stamp. Be careful not to overload because that will result in really smudgy prints. So you need, this takes some experimentation on like really figuring out how much, ink that you need. So this might take a few tries with, testing out what is just enough and what is too much, what is too little. Use your hands as a pressure or a button to place pressure directly onto your paper. Be careful not to move the paper too much when you're applying that pressure, and peel very carefully, very slow and carefully. You can have fun with different paper colors. You could try using multiple inks, do a whole rainbow color if you like. Just have fun. All right, so here's my stamp that I've loaded on with. This is testing it out with that foam sponge tool there. And here I'm placing my paper on top. On top tends to be kind of easier with the soft cut and then here I am using the button to apply pressure onto the paper. So instead of like a traditional stamp kind of thing where you're stamping the block onto the paper, you're placing the paper on top of the block and really making sure that the pressure is evenly applied everywhere. So you can see how long I was rubbing that. And then you can kind of see through the paper now, right? That you can kind of see that ink is loaded onto that paper. Here I'm peeling very carefully. And I wanted to show you kind of a mistake version. So this one I loaded way too much ink, and you can kind of see that it's smudged a little bit because of how much ink there was on it. So I'm switching to the foam roller one, testing that one out, making sure to apply the ink evenly on my foam roller and applying just enough, not too much, but just enough to get kind of even coverage onto my block here. And again, testing that again with a piece of paper, preferably with clean hands, because otherwise it really does, the ink really does get everywhere. So here I am using the button, and you can see how much I'm using that button. Like it's quite a while that I'm sitting there kind of rubbing and trying really hard not to move the paper while I'm doing it. There you go. That's beautiful. Yay. So just comparing with the last one. Yep. It's less overloaded, not as smudgy. Looks great. So thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoy the video and have fun playing around with soft cut and block printing. Thanks, everyone.